Oh. All right, here we go. Welcome to another edition of Shoot the Defence. I'm your host, Stel. I've got Steve Eyre with me right here. How you doing, Steve? You good?
Hi, Stel. I'm good. Are you?
Yeah, all good, mate. How was your trip to Anfield at the weekend?
Really enjoyed it.
Yeah?
I enjoyed the Liverpool experience. I was doing some media duty for the BBC. I've only ever been as an away supporter. So you're behind the goal often, and I was sat in the main stand, and I could really appreciate, what people talk about as, what Anfield generates, and to be part of it, and for Liverpool to be good without being great. It was a very special home game for them.
Absolutely. What's the atmosphere like? Is that the first time you've been to a Liverpool game where it's obviously first home game of the season, people buzzing?
Yes, I had the headphones on and that, but like I say, I'm only behind the goal with the away supporters of Manchester City. So to be right on the halfway line and to just really get the four sides of the stadium, it was amazing. There was the 97th sad victim of the Hillsborough disaster, which was obviously well celebrated just before kick-off. And obviously the cop with all their anthems in full voice, and the team playing well and winning. It was great. It was great to be a Liverpool fan, and obviously for me to be a neutral, it was great to experience something for the first time.
Absolutely. Well, we've got a wonderful special guest here. It's his debut on Shoot the Defence. He's a good friend of ours, Morecambe defender, former Man United, former Leeds United, Scott Wooton. Scott, welcome, man. How you doing?
Cheers, guys. Yeah, very well. Doing good, thanks. Nice to be here. So I'm looking forward to it.
Great to have you on, Geezer. How's life at your new club?
Yeah, it's been good. It's been a good start. We've obviously the first time Morecambe have ever been in League One. So it's obviously going to be challenging at times, but so far so good. I think that's 4 points from 4 games. Lost to Rotherham on Tuesday, which was a tough game, really. Should have got at least a point. And we were very unlucky on Saturday away at Gillingham. Lost 2-1 to 2 set pieces, small margins, but played well for large parts. And things are looking very positive, yeah.
Well, you haven't been there long, have you? So in terms of getting that match sharpness, is it difficult to get back into the swing of things, especially after such a long time out, a few months, obviously no preseason and all that?
Yeah. So I picked up an injury in middle of March, which sort of ended my season a bit earlier. And then obviously I've only joined being at Morecambe. Well, the season had started, so obviously I hadn't had a full pre-season. So it is difficult. I'm going to have to be patient. And I've only came on in 1 game so far, so it's been a little bit frustrating, but I understand it at the same time. Any player will tell you it's tough when you don't have a full pre-season, and obviously, like I say, I'll have to be patient. But I feel like I'm getting sharper, getting fitter now. Been there a couple of weeks, so the more training and more sharpness, I can feel it coming.
Excellent. Well, fingers crossed you get back to match fitness and you'll be back in that first team, mate.
Cheers, mate.
Excellent. Right. Let's kick off with Man United against Southampton. I should say Southampton against Man United. I want to get this one out of the way first because obviously Scott is here and he's fresh and I don't want to bore him later on. So we'll talk about this draw. Southampton 1, Man United 1. Steve, we spoke about how Man United beat Leeds last week and how they had more legs, had more running, more energy. And it seemed that on Sunday that Southampton matched Manchester United in terms of the same thing. They went a goal ahead through a big deflection, but United fought back. But even after that equaliser, it was similar to the Europa League final. United didn't have an answer to even get a second goal. So let's talk about Southampton first, mate. I want to give them all the credit because Hasenhüttl has come under a lot of criticism in the past. And after that opening day defeat, people already started saying, oh, maybe he's not the guy and yada, yada, yada. But good result for him, no?
A brilliant result. I think you take a point against Manchester United if you're Southampton every season. Bearing in mind Armstrong could have had a hat-trick. Che Adams was a handful. And I really came to the conclusion on the back of signing a 5-year contract that Ward-Prowse is brilliant. One of those club men. Could end up being a Letizia type figure. A one-club man, you don't know what the future holds. We know that can change, but he just looks a brilliant club player for Southampton. You did mention United didn't really follow up with a similar performance to what they put in against Leeds, which was an ideal fixture for them. That's been proven now 2 years running. Probably the 2 teams who've got the most legs in the Premier League, I thought, last week anyway. I'm going to say it, I'll never make an excuse for Manchester United as a Manchester City supporter, but I thought the grass was kept long. Brighton do this, I think, against the big boys. And I think Southampton did it because I was watching a game with friends and everyone was wondering, when he was going to speed up, thought it was ponderous, thought it was laboured. So that said, I put my eyes to the surface quite passionately, really. And I just didn't think it played as manicured as like the Arsenal game against Chelsea, City at the Etihad, Liverpool at Anfield. And I just thought that slowed United down. And then obviously United have got similar questions that need to be answered in the next few weeks. Still, is have they got a plan B if anything like that does happen? Because they did last year. They did have a plan B because all those 12 games that they were behind in, they came back to win. But on Saturday, it was Sunday lunchtime, for me, it was quite obvious that the possession and the last third entries of Southampton in the last 10 or 15 minutes is what they were going to be the winners. So the fact that they finished the game well, Southampton, and they got a point against Manchester United, I think was actually really good.
Yeah, I think we need to take into consideration that Danny Ings, their main guy, left in the summer, was sold. They brought in a relatively inexperienced striker, Armstrong from Blackburn Rovers, if I'm not mistaken. Vestergaard's gone. So that's two key players. You mentioned Ward-Prowse is still there. Obviously, Walcott is still there. But when you look at that back line, fairly inexperienced in comparison to what Man United had going forward. But I just want to go back to what I mentioned at the beginning in terms of Southampton's energy and the pressing very, very high up the pitch. It's almost as if when you do that against Man United with that back line, they can't cope.
Well, yes. Scott is probably better judged to talk about Harry Maguire. It appears that, the question marks that were levelled at him, all his career, they got put to one side, basically, for him coming back from injury to play for England so heroically, and always is available for Manchester United. He's actually got rid of a few question marks that have been put out, but he looked really slow in possession on Saturday. He doesn't like to be hurried at all. I think it'll be a lesson for the other teams to go against Man United is to put speed on the front line and put them under pressure. Shaw played on the back foot. He wasn't really flying up and down. And like you say, I think Livramento, is that how you pronounce it? The lad from Chelsea who's come in. He provided some real unexpected energy that nobody knew anything about him, and possibly caught United cold as well. And Armstrong's like a Paul Dickoff type, probably scores more goals, but he's like a wasp around the centre half. So probably Southampton, who are expected to struggle this year, gave us some indication that they actually might be okay.
Scott, before I ask you about Ollie, who you know quite well, given your time at United, let's go back to what Steve said about the pitch, the way that Southampton let the grass grow. As a pro footballer, how difficult is it to play the system that you want to play, knowing that your opponents have deliberately grown the grass?
Yeah, and it'll be frustrating for Man United. They would have knew that as soon as they arrive at the stadium, all teams, they go out to check the pitch. They would have seen that and they would have knew that. And I think especially with the Man United and how they play, especially away from home, I think they've equalled Arsenal's record, having 27 games.
27, yeah.
And with the stuff of coming behind in games, a lot of it was, how Man United have always been associated playing fast, attacking football. So if you can't, and Steve will know this as well, when you can't wrap them passes 20, 30 yards, slick, crisp along the floor, and there's a bit of dew on the grass and it can really slippy, it takes away a huge part of Man United's attack. And, can say what you want. If that's what they have done, it's clever from Southampton. I remember we went to Newport, different level, but we were playing for Plymouth and we were all about playing along the grass, passing out from the back, fast attacking football. Went to Newport, who had no intention of that. The grass was like this, and it just takes away the whole impetus of your game. So straight away it was going to be difficult. But I completely echo what Steve said. They just looked very laboured, lacklustre, and like you say, you have to give Southampton massive credit for how they set up tactically. The front two caused all sorts of problems. And what I thought was interesting as well is how they went 4-4-2. Very few teams play that way these days. So I think it was brave from the manager. He's obviously sticking to his guns. He believes in his tactics and the process that he's got going on there. But yeah, going back to the original question, if they did do that, fair play to them. But I think, as Steve said again, United have got to find a way to deal with that. I did think they just looked very, Southampton got chances, winning the ball high up, high press. And, if that was at Old Trafford, it might not have happened because they might have moved the ball around the pitch a lot quicker and played through the press, but they weren't able to do that.
Yeah, and
I just thought, just another point, just as you were both, tuning it over there, I also thought that the performance of Martial had a hell of a lot to be desired. And I thought it made the chain of events from that. It's bad enough not having a good game yourself, but I thought that encouraged Pogba to go forward because Martial was doing nothing. You saw he was very good, Pogba, around the box. It encouraged Fernandes to go forward from the number 10 position. So in back play, where you're trying to start things off, you were left with Fred. And I believe that's honestly down to Martial's performance. That's how I saw it. Whereas if he'd had a better game up front, you could have kept him up front on his own, and Pogba and Fernandes could have played in the middle of the pitch and built up some play, and they could have gone from there and built up some speed. But I thought he was so poor that encouraged the top players to try and do a bit, and it left Fred like pulling strings. He can't do the job.
And exactly, and as a result, he's put a lot of pressure on the back line.
Yes.
And Scott, I wanted to ask you about Harry Maguire, a guy who came in obviously with a big price tag, as Steve mentioned, they had a very good European Championships. But, you played with the likes of Johnny Evans and Rio Ferdinand, and Harry Maguire. A lot of United fans these days are trying to put him on that same pedestal. And you can't do that, can you? You really can't.
No, and I almost half feel a little bit sorry for him because the price tag is what's going to automatically draw people to them conclusions, but that's not his fault. He's not said, I'm an £80 million player or whatever. I think the Van Dijk going for 70 or 75 as well, I feel a bit sorry for him because with him being English and being at a good club like Leicester, and he would have had years left on his contract. I think he's done really well for Man United, to be honest, but something like the pace issue that he's got, and I have as well, you've either got fast twitch fibres or you haven't. And Steve will know this as well from coaching. You could do all the drills you want. That seems to be the big issue with him. And in the comparisons to Van Dijk and Ferdinand and these types of players, that's why I think hopefully the sign of Rafael Varane will be huge, because he will, you could potentially see similarities there with a sort of Vidic and Ferdinand partnership. Varane, similar to Ferdinand, really good on the ball, quick, strong, really good defender. And Maguire, similar to Vidic, really powerful, aggressive, dominant in the air. So, it'll be interesting to see how that develops in the coming weeks. I'm sure Ollie will be dying to get them two playing together as soon as you can, really.
Well, the thing is, you mentioned Vidic and Ferdinand, and they're arguably the best combination central defenders the Premier League has ever seen, arguably. I say because this is still an argument a lot of people like to discuss. But, Man United fans will see Varane and Maguire and they're going to think, they're going to be the perfect partnership. But it's going to take a long time for those two to get used to each other's style, surely, because Varane has come from Real Madrid playing alongside Sergio Ramos, is probably one of the greatest defenders ever. He's coming to United with Harry Maguire is under a lot of pressure, England player as well. It's going to be difficult for them to gel straight away, isn't it?
Yeah, 100%. When Varane went to Real Madrid, he was very, very young, and he's gone into a dressing room and a team where he's got so much experience in and around him. Like you say, he played alongside Sergio Ramos. He's got in front of him Modric, Casemiro, just thousands of games between them.
Toni Kroos, and then you got Bale ahead and Hazard, and
Ronaldo was there when he first joined. So he's gone into that team, sort of like the young, inexperienced player, feeding off all these players around him. Whereas now he's gone into the Man United dressing room and the Man United team. What's he won? 4 Champions Leagues, 1 or 2 La Ligas, Euros, World Cup, whatever it was with France. They're going to look to him as he needs to be the main man here. Now it's obviously, it's down to his character and how he handles himself. Can he take on that? Can he take on that mantle? And listen, for me, he's top. Him and Van Dijk are the best centre-backs in the world for me. And they have been for years. So I believe he can. But like you say, it will take time. It'll take a lot of gelling. Because, him and Ramos, they played together for years and years. So him and Maguire, they will take time. They'll have to get used to each other on and off the pitch. And that only comes with experience and time on the training pitch and games.
Brilliant. Okay, I need to ask you about this head coach of Manchester United. You know him, okay? So I don't expect you to, to lavish praise on him. But the fact is, I'm looking at this guy. He's come in with a big reputation in terms of a playing reputation, not a managerial reputation. We know about Mulder, we know about Cardiff, but he's coming at United, and I think he's stabilised the club. I think he's done well given the circumstances. A lot of off the field issues, be it with the owners, with Woodward, be it transfers, etc., etc. They have backed him, and they have brought in a lot of players. There have been some players who, perhaps haven't worked out, like Van der Beek, who I believe should have started ahead of Matic, but whatever, that is what it is. You know him. What kind of character is he in the dressing room, mate? Because I see him on the touchline, arms folded, he'll gesticulate at full time, he'll be smiling even if there's a defeat. And a lot of United fans are looking, thinking, he doesn't have that ruthlessness in him, but you know him. What is he really like? Is he a different person behind closed doors?
Yeah, 100%. I think that the smiley nature, he's probably had that since he was a baby, really, or a kid, that you just can't. I think that's him just being himself. I don't believe you can flick a switch and turn into this, I'm on the touchline here now for Man United, I've got to be this really nasty, snarly guy. That's just how he is as a person. But yeah, like you say, he was my reserve manager, and I think 100% he's got a ruthless side to him. I've seen that as a reserve manager, so I'm pretty sure as a first team manager, he'd be exactly the same. He's not like an angry guy, or he's a good, decent, really decent, good fella from my experience with him anyway. But in terms of tough decisions, any ruthlessness like that, he no doubt about it. And I think you've seen that even with some of the decisions he's had to make in terms of with the transfer market, letting players go, keeping players who he wants to. He will do what he thinks best for Man United, and he was very, very strong-minded person as well. He has his beliefs, and he'll stick to that. And again, I think you've seen that with, he's never been swayed by, if you're a manager of Man United, you've got millions of people picking the team, picking the tactics. And, I hear a lot of people saying you should play Pogba alongside Matic or Fred or McTominay and Pogba. But, he sees these players every day in training. He likes to play with Fred and McTominay or Matic, doesn't he? Now, that I know a lot of people who don't like that, but he's the manager. He's bold. He doesn't care what people think. And ultimately, I think if you're going to manage one of, if not the biggest clubs in the world, that's how you've got to be. And he's certainly got that. I think for the job he's done or doing, I think he's done a really good job personally. I think it's been tough because of the managers he's had to take over from, who are proven managers, and the circumstances of how he got the job. I'm sure it would have been difficult for him in the early stages, but he got off to an unbelievable start, and then he had a real tough patch, didn't he, when he got the job permanently. And I'm sure he would have learned an awful lot from that. But I think what he's done, especially in terms of the recruitment, I think the recruitment of the club's changed, and I'm sure he's been a big driving force in that. Because there's no doubt the club made huge mistakes transfer-wise. Some of the players they signed, they weren't the right type, didn't fit the sort of like the profile of Man United, and it just didn't work. And I think that's the biggest credit he deserves. I think look at Varane, Sancho, they were linked with these players last summer. They probably saved themselves God knows how much money just waiting a year. They're not making panic decisions now, I feel, with the recruitment. And I think that's what all the successful clubs do. Man City have done it, Liverpool have done it, and hopefully Man United are now back on the way to challenging for the title and the big prizes, the Champions Leagues and stuff like that. And I'm a huge fan of Ollie.
Well, there's a saying, time will tell, and I'm not fully convinced yet that he's the man to take United forward. But that's because the results, it's a results industry. Do you know what I mean? I've been following football for many, many years. I mean, Christ, I remember when Fergie got rid of Kanchelskis in Hughes, and a lot of people were saying, how can he play these youngsters? How can he trust in them? And what happened? We know what happened. Now, I'm not saying that Solskjaer has got the Fergie, magic wand that can turn things around, but he's building something. You can see he's learning from his mistakes. But my main concern as a United fan is, well, his in-game management. And there's certain decisions that he made at the weekend, which obviously I would have preferred him doing different things, which maybe could have affected the game. And other people will tell you a million things, like you just said before, in terms of his selection. But are you confident that he is the man to take United forward? Because he signed a new contract anyway, so the club obviously have faith in him. So any United fans are now Ollie out, what would you be saying to them?
I'd say he needs more time. I agree that now is the time. I feel this season now, and possibly next season, he's going to need to win a trophy or get really, really close. I don't think you can just keep going on another 2 or 3 years, and that'll be 7 years now without a trophy. But I think with the signings he's made, and if you look at the team on paper now, I just feel the one or two short of, if you put that 11 on paper and you go, wow, that is up there with the likes of Chelsea, City, Liverpool. I think they've got a really good back four. I think the goalkeeping issue, he's got a little bit of a problem there. Although I think the guy seems to have done all right this season so far from what I've seen. I think Mason Greenwood's going to be a superstar. So yeah, I just say he just needs a bit more time, a bit more back, and one or two more players. I think could really tilt it towards Man United competing, like Liverpool done with Alisson and Van Dijk. I think Varane and Sancho are huge signings for the club. I think the one or two short.
Brilliant. Steve, let's talk about Arsenal against Chelsea, mate. Lukaku making his debut, should I say his second debut for Chelsea, getting on the score sheet. Reece James making it 2. Chelsea absolutely bullied Arsenal. And it's not the first time we've said this about Arsenal being soft. It isn't the first time we've said it about Chelsea bullying Arsenal in the first place. I mean, I remember Drogba absolutely battering them over the years. So it's almost as if nothing had changed. But Chelsea were just so dominant, weren't they, mate? I know Arsenal have got injuries with Bellerin and Lacazette. Who else? Aubameyang was on the bench. Ben White, COVID. But even with those players in, I don't think it would have made a difference. Do you?
No, I don't. But it was a mismatch, really, physically, tactically, technically. And the fact that Arsenal had to attack with just Martinelli up front meant the turnovers were heavy in Chelsea's favour to basically do what they want to Arsenal. I think the pundits on the TV said could have been 6 or 7. I think that was fair. And obviously, we've probably seen the centre-forward performance of the last, 10, 20 years in terms of impact, maybe because he's been away for 10 years and what have you. And we knew he was going to be good, but we were thought, will it take him a few games? And he was straight into it, straight away. And got to say, Stel, if you are underdog in a match, and Scott will tell you and confirm, I'm sure, you can't have everything. You can block certain sides of the pitch off. You can stop the odd player or two. You can stem the flow. You can win 5 minutes of games. You can time waste. But you can't have everything when you're trying to contain. You can have a lot, but you can't have everything. And it seemed what they forgot whilst they were trying to do everything. It was like fingers in the dam. Once you sort one problem out, there was something else. But the ball into Lukaku's feet was ridiculously on so many occasions, and then that was like the trigger for huge amounts of trauma, more than trauma for Arsenal, because he took it into his feet. The defender behind him, Pablo Mari, he was like a youth team player rather than an experienced player. He was always marking behind him instead of from the side. So he had no chance of getting the ball stealing the ball in front. He was easy to pin. And at that moment, once you've got your defender where you want him, if you're Lukaku, you can turn left, you can turn right, you can roll him, you can bring teammates into play. Once it went into Lukaku's feet, the options were endless. And as we saw, you've got fullback scoring. Mason Mount could have got a couple in the box. Havertz could have got a couple in the box. And it was nearly all done by the ball into Lukaku's feet. So 1, they didn't mark him properly. 2, there was no pressure on the ball to stop the pass going into him. And 3, there was nobody in front of Lukaku stopping the ball going into him. So they basically got that big thing wrong, and it absolutely imploded.
The movement of Havertz and Mount did them a lot of damage, but I think they identified Kieran Tierney as possibly the weak link because Reece James was having a field day on that right-hand side. And I think maybe they knew that Tierney may have been carrying an injury because he went off later on, didn't he? But he didn't get anywhere near him, did he?
No, but well, for me, Stel, again, roll Scott in. He's a centre half. He's doing it for a living presently. It's because the centre half wasn't marking properly, and as I've just discussed, that he was getting pinned by standing behind him. His options were endless, which we've just covered. But what that did do, when it went into Lukaku's feet, once he touched it, they'd already done a decent job marking on Mason Mount and Havertz. But because Lukaku could quite easily do lots of things, that drew those players, those defenders, towards to help out, whether it be to cover, whether it be to try and steal the ball off his touch. All of a sudden, you've got Mason Mount and Havertz in the game free as the two number 10s. So there was no point marking them in the first place, because once it went into Lukaku's feet, they just became free. So it was a real, I think I would describe it as a failed attempt still.
Yeah. I mean, I was watching Gary Neville and Carragher talking about this instance with Lukaku and Pablo Mari, and they were talking about Drogba and how Carragher was defending against him. And Scott, it just seems that they just wanted to say a defender has to be smart to deal with Lukaku. That's effectively it, isn't it? You have to be smart and be positionally aware, right?
Yeah, 100%. I watched that game, and I feel, how can I comment on a Premier League centre-back, but you're both spot on. You're just someone who's that strong. Like, Drogba was exactly the same. There's just no way Pablo Mari was going to compete physically anyway. And I also think tactically, Chelsea, how high the wing-backs were, when you're saying about Tierney, it was, and that pass, and Steve will know this, when you're coached, if I'm the left back and the ball goes into the striker who's on the left side centre back, he has to narrow off, especially Mount's run, because Xhaka was not really doing anything. He wasn't marking Mount or protecting the pass into Lukaku. Tierney has to go with that run. He can't be thinking, oh, well, I've got Reece James, and he lets Mount run inside him, in between him and Mari. He has to narrow off and come inside. And that gives, obviously, Reece James acres of space. So I just think Chelsea tactically were just, they had men everywhere. And like Steve said, it all comes, as soon as that pass gets into the striker's feet, you've got the 2 10s running off, and the wing backs are wide, causing all sorts of problems. It gives the full backs massive decisions to make. Do they go in and get tight to the number 10, leaving the wing back? Do they edge out towards the wing back? But then the number 10's got too much space. I thought they were absolutely brilliant, Chelsea.
It was a complete mismatch, though, Steve, wasn't it? I mean, you look at Arsenal's front line. You've got Martinelli that came back from the Olympics. He's probably knackered. He's a kid. Saka is probably knackered. He's a kid. Smith Rowe is a kid. Pepe is just shit. I'm sorry. He's just fucking shit, honestly. And then in the middle, you've got Lokonga, who's just come in. He's fairly inexperienced at this level anyway. Xhaka, who they wanted to get rid of a few weeks ago. And then the back four, you've got Cedric, who Southampton didn't want, Holding, and Murray, shit. And then you got Tierney and the keeper. So from 1 to 11, Arsenal were going to get dicked either way. Doesn't matter, does it? Chelsea could put a second string team.
Stel, just remind me, who was that powerhouse centre midfield player that played well at Old Trafford last year for Arsenal?
Oh, Maitland. Well, not Maitland. No. Partey. He's injured.
Partey. Yeah.
He got injured in a pre-season friendly against Chelsea.
So he was missing too. Like I say, I'm sure Chelsea would have found another way again. But they certainly look devoid of ideas, and the manager gets it, but equally there's not enough characters on the pitch there that can sort it out for themselves. It's, Arteta is bound to get all the criticism, but you didn't see any organising on the pitch. They just thought, oh God, wait. They were just beaten. And obviously, looking at the next fixture, Manchester City away, they've obviously got a tough 7 days in front of them. So obviously, from my point of view, long may that continue. But there look so many gaps and voids that to pinpoint it to one problem, whether it be selection, injuries, COVID, but the way they were set up was a bit of a joke.
Absolutely. Well, the question that is on everyone's lips at the moment when it comes to Mikel Arteta is how long has he got left? Now, I personally think it's too early in the season to be making any changes, But with the international break on the horizon, I don't know, man. I don't know. I think he'll hang on until December. But it just depends on if they can turn things around, because I think the board are looking at him saying, well, you don't have your first choice squad there and you've still got Aubameyang, who we gave a new contract to. So how long has he got left, Stephen and Scott? How long do you think he's got?
A Premier League pumping. They can continue to lose. And they continue to lose and not score. And I think he's got a bit of time, but there's nearly always a watershed moment. And you can't rule out that they won't get beat 3 or 4 by City. And if they get a good hiding by one of the lower teams at home, at the Emirates, I think he'll go.
So I think he'll walk, or do you think they'll sack him?
No. I think they'll sack him, but it'll be the size of the score lines that dictate. Right. Put it this way, Stel, I'm suggesting that I think they will continue to lose. But if they play some good football, draw the odd game, win one, but then lose some 1-0, another 1-0, then I think they'll be able to keep towing the party line of, we are work in progress. That's what all these managers trying to do, to buy a bit of time. We are this, we are that, we're trying to gel. But I also fear that they could get a pumping in the next 6 or 7 weeks. And if that happens, that might be hard to keep him in employment.
Well, Scott, he's got injuries. He's got Odegaard that's just come, re-signed, should I say. He's signed permanently. I think they spent over 120 million this summer on transfers, which I think is the biggest that they've done ever, really. Obviously, the board have faith in him. Otherwise, they wouldn't have given him that war chest, right? So, again, are they going to wait for him to get all his players back to full fitness and then judge? Or, as Steve said, wait for him to get an absolute hiding and give him the chop, so to speak? Because the way I see it is that he's got these players that are obviously injured and whatnot, but it's going to take time for them to get back into the squad, to maintain that fitness. And let's not forget, these players are already in the physio room. They've already got history with injuries. Partey being one of them. I think it's like the 3rd or 4th time he's been. In fact, I think he arrived injured, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I think he did. Yeah, I think you're right. It's tough, innit? I mean, it's never nice to see managers losing the jobs or talked about in that way. But I mean, just like you say, they've lost to Brentford, they've got battered by Chelsea, they've got City. You just can't really, at the minute, see where a really good win is going to come from for them. They've obviously got, like you say, loads of issues, injuries, and a big thing for me with Arsenal is I just look at Arsenal now as just a mid-table club team. You know, when I was growing up and I first started to enjoy football, and obviously you were older than me, Arsenal were like winning leagues, getting to Champions League finals. I look at them now and I think they're just like, I just don't know what direction they're sort of going in. And going back to Mikel Arteta and the players, Arsenal have historically given a manager, Unai Emery got a fair bit of time after Wenger. So I don't think they'll panic sack him. But in terms of what you said about giving him the war chest and bringing the players in, I think now, and I'm sure Steve will know this more than me, a lot less now is just down to the manager on players. They will see, with Arsenal, we want to play a certain way. We can sack the manager, but if we bring in a similar manager who plays a certain way, he'll want these sort of types of players, if that makes sense. You know what I mean? I think there's a lot of people upstairs in clubs now who make decisions on recruitment and the styles and types of players and all this type of thing. So I don't think that will affect them. Maybe they might have a bit of sympathy for him, like you say, with not being able to feel the strongest. He's just signed Ben White, played one game now, he's got COVID. Partey's a big player for him, he's injured. I'm not sure what the situation is with Aubameyang and Lacazette. Do they want to be there? Willian as well. Recruitment's been a big problem for them. I think the last few years, some of the players they've signed, I'm not sure. Going back to United, you can sort of see where Man United are trying. You can see where Man City were going, Liverpool. I'm not really sure what Arsenal in the last 3 or 4 years have been where they're trying to go, what type of team are they trying to build. So I think it'd be difficult for them to make it past Christmas, really. I just can't see. I just don't think there's, like you said, good characters there at that club at the minute.
This is it. He looks like a broken man. And I saw Arsenal fans outside the stadium, like on social media, saying, "Come on, do yourself a favour and walk." Now, obviously, he's not going to listen to them. but pressure bursts pipes, and he's only human after all, and he's probably thinking, well, is it really worth being here?
Yeah.
Stel, I feel about there's some compliments here in terms of people's character, but when you see Arteta, the first thing I always think of, he looks hell of a nice guy. Then I see his assistant Albert, who works with Ryan Giggs with the Wales team. I always think, nice guy. Then I see Steve round, and I think he's a nice guy. And then I see Ben White, and I think he looks a nice kid. Being nice, they might not be, but that's how they appear. They don't look like they've got any presence to me. They don't look like they've got anything that you fear.
I agree. And if you look at them from 1 to 11, you look at each one of those players. The only player I could say has got some fight in him at that club is Torreira, and they want to get rid of him. Where's the fight in that club? Saka, who's he going to fight? Pepe, who's he going to fight? They can't fight themselves out of a paper bag. So what are they going to do? Is Aubameyang a captain that you'd look at and say, wow, he's so influential? Fuck no.
You could argue he's not done a thing since the ink was dry on his new contract. Literally.
Yeah, you agree?
There seems to be a load of apathy characters, just really nice guy where you look across if you were against him and you go. I think actually Gary Neville mentioned this after the Brentford game about Ben White. You could say this about almost all their roster. You look across and go, I fancy this today. Because you just look at what they look like, and that they just look like a load of nice guys. They're not going to be strong enough to compete with the big boys.
And that's been like that for almost a decade now, though, hasn't it?
Yeah.
I think, like I say, you think of Vieira, Petit, Shaw Campbell. You think of that team Toure, and compare that to what it is now, and you just it's a million miles away. Isn't it? It's been like even Wenger. That was
Scott. Is that what current players are even saying about Arsenal? Because I remember we were talking about this on the podcast 10 years ago. Like you said, like is this what current players are talking about now?
Yeah, of course, sure. It's just so obvious, isn't it? It's not even like you say. You look at that Arsenal team that was constantly competing with Man United for titles and look at it was pace and power. They were all 6 foot. Henry, Wiltor, Vieira, Campbell, Toure, Lauren. You look at them now, and like Steve said, it looks, Arsenal shouldn't be getting turned over by a newly promoted team on the first day. It just shouldn't happen if what Arsenal are. It's just too, like I say, it's been like that. How many big games have Arsenal won in the last 10 years? I remember seeing a stat on Monday Night Football against the top 6 or the top 5. I don't think they'd won a game away from home in years. And it's like you say, it's just something not right. It hasn't been right for a while at that club. Only for them to win stuff. Like I said, I just see Arsenal now as a mid-table nice team. Really.
Yeah, agreed. All right, Steve, you were at Anfield. Liverpool beating Burnley 2-0. Could have been a lot more. Tsimikas had a fantastic game at left back. Trent did as well. But yeah, Liverpool haven't missed a beat so far this season. I know it's only 2 games in, and I said this to Semps, who's been on the show before, and he's got the Views podcast. And I said to him, if Man City do not get Harry Kane or a striker, Liverpool are going to walk this title this season because they're that good. And he says, no, it's too early to say, you can't say that. I'm like, I'm telling you this now because they've got goals all over the pitch. But the main guys can get you 20, 30 goals. Salah can do that. Mane can do that. Jota can get you 20, 30 goals. I think Firmino can get you 15, 20 this season. And that's not just that's excluding the midfielders. So they bossed Burnley, and Burnley were very physical as well. And yet they overcame that hurdle. So I don't know, man. I think Liverpool are very, very, very hot favourites for it, in my opinion, anyway.
Yeah, well, I like it, Stel. I thought you were a bit generous there with the goal count. I see Salah getting 25. I don't see any of the others getting 25 or 30. I see them getting 10 or 15. I don't think Mane's ever had those high numbers. I don't think Jota and Firmino will get the 90 minutes because I think they'll share them.
Mane had a crap season last year, to be fair.
Yeah,
the crap season last season.
So I'd probably take about 20, 30 goals off their title charge compared to possibly what you think of them. But I'm not going to go against you completely because they're very, very good. I don't think they'll score that many. They've got Henderson back fit. Whether he can remain fit is another thing. They've got Van Dijk back. The one that fascinated me on Saturday was Trent Alexander-Arnold. I've seen it with Nicholas and Elka at Manchester City. I've seen it with others. Once you have a really, really naughty hamstring strain like he had in the summer, that ruined his summer and he ruined his Euros, obviously, you come back from it. And how do you come back from it? Well, you spend 2 months in the gym. You spend the first 3 weeks of that in the physio room. And then when you come back, you are a different shape physically. You're 6 months older, this in this case. And the concern is sprinting again, because mentally and physically, you've already had a problem physically, and mentally there's something inside that tells you, I'm not sure about my hamstring now, because it's got to, once it goes properly for the first time, the likelihood is you're likely to re-injure throughout your career. Let's hope it doesn't. And I watched him be absolutely brilliant on Saturday. He was brilliant, but he never sprinted. He played like a 35-year-old. He was coasting. He was just arriving into midfield. He was around the box. He was crossing. But I just wonder about his sprinting. I also have got to say the same about Van Dijk with that horrific injury. He was brilliant, but twisting and turning and decelerating and sprinting, they may just have to be getting into these games to get into the big ones, you know, next week, Chelsea, and to get through the season. But I just wonder if 50% of their back four, who I think are brilliant, are never, ever going to reach physical capacity again because of the trauma that they've had this summer and last year.
So do you think it's fear more than anything? Fear of, it recurring more than anything?
I do, yeah. I do. I mean, like I say, I saw it with Anelka at City. There was a reason he was playing for City and not one of the world's best clubs at the time. But when that boy was, obviously he was a boy, when he came on the scene at Arsenal, it was his sprinting and then his powerful finishing secondary to his sprinting. But he basically stopped sprinting. Now, they could have said he was lazy, but I've just seen loads of players who have hamstrings problems, and that was a serious one for Alexander Arnold, change their dynamics about how they play the game. So I'm just going to keep my eye on that, but I really want to reinforce the fact they were both brilliant.
Well, the thing is, he's 22 years old, right? And for him to have such a serious hamstring injury, obviously his body is still changing. He's still growing, isn't he?
Yes.
So that's obviously got to have an effect as well, surely.
Well, he was brilliant playing medium paced. So again, 6 games time, he might pick it up against an opponent but that stop-start movement, because you're building up possession, then all of a sudden you go. It was just something that I spotted. So there weren't negatives, there were more curiosities. And I said to Scott pre-show that I love the Liverpool experience of being at Anfield, and they were good without being great. And they toyed with Burnley in the last half an hour, which is a worry for Burnley because Brighton did that to them the week before as well.
Like you say, you can get away with that against Burnley at home for Liverpool, where you're going to have 60-70% possession. It'll be away at City or away at Chelsea, Man United playing against the Sterling or the Sancho, where if that is true what you're saying, and he has got some issues, that's where it'll come to a point where, is he right? Is he not right? Same with Van Dijk.
And he's so far advanced, Scott. He's basically right wing for Liverpool. That Dwight McNeil had his best game for Burnley on the left wing, because on the turnover of the ball, Burnley got the ball to McNeil, and Alexander wasn't in the right back slot where I know you've played before, and you're ready to defend. He's running back towards right back from right wing. So he was never really in the right position to defend. So I think there's always going to be question marks about his defending, because he's always in the wrong position to defend because he's so good on the attack.
Yeah, 100%, yeah.
So what about Harvey Elliott then? Because he had a decent game, didn't he? But the thing is, he's all left foot at the moment, isn't he?
Nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that, mate. If your left foot's as good as that, and you're all left foot, and you're playing for the European champions, the ex-Premier League champions, you are worth your place and your weight in gold. We can't all be blessed to be two-footed. Stel, he was brilliant, and with that left foot. And he actually played most of the game in right midfield. So on that left foot, the pitch was open. It was wide open for him to find gaps, switch play, get it into those 3 amazing strikers. You don't start for Liverpool in the first home game of the season randomly if you're not a special talent. And it took me about 5 minutes to realise why he was starting. He was brilliant still.
Absolutely. Well, Scott, I mentioned Liverpool's potential title challenge, mate. When you look at what they've got in reserve, it's absolutely outstanding. You got Konate, who was at Leipzig last season, Thiago, Firmino was on the bench, Gomez came off the bench, Minamino is still there. They got Jones, Robertson was on the bench. Now, I don't think they're going to have as many injuries as they did last season. I think last season was a bit of an anomaly. I don't know a team that's had so many injuries at one stage of the season like they did. You know, Fabinho, for crying out loud, he didn't play because his dad passed away, so he had to go to the funeral. So that's another player. In terms of strength and depth, then, do you think they're probably the better equipped side of everyone in the league?
No, I think Man City have got the best strength. Yeah. Okay. I think Man City's second 11 could get in the top 4 or challenge for the top 4 in comparison to the others, personally. But you know, it's not night and day. I think, like you say, Liverpool's squad is superb. Best squad Liverpool have had in my lifetime, anyway. I think a big thing about Liverpool as well is they were absolutely unbelievable, weren't they, for 2 years? The year he won the Champions, how did he never won the Premier League that year as well? Did he get 96 or 97 points? Obviously, huge credit to Man City. They were unbelievable that year. Then they won it again the next year. But that summer in between, all the players were playing. Whereas this summer now, you've got Mane, Salah. They've had a rest. That would be such a big difference to Liverpool's title challenge. Yeah, of course, the luck they had with the injuries last year was, you'd never predict that I'm sure Klopp or the fans would never have thought that could happen in a million years. Selling Lovren, who again, I don't think the fans like, but if they'd have kept Lovren, he might have actually solved some of the problems at centre-back with Matip, Gomez and Van Dijk all getting injured. I mean, you just couldn't write it. I think Nat Phillips came in, did a good job.
That's right, yeah.
But now strengthened that. I think Man City, I mean, Mendy, Zinchenko, the centre-back, Diaz, Laporte, Stones was superb last season. Walker, Cancelo. They've got 2 top world-class players for every single position. The amount of midfielders they've got is scary. The wide players now, even with Grealish, Bernardo Silva, De Bruyne, Foden. I think Man City got the best squad, in my opinion. Even Chelsea squad. Chelsea didn't have Thiago Silva, Kante, Pulisic, Ziyech, all didn't play for Chelsea. I think this could be the most exciting Premier League we've seen in minutes. I think it'd be great if the 4 teams we've mainly spoken about tonight, if they were all in and around it come April time. I think it could be an amazing season.
Absolutely. The one thing I will say in closing when it comes to Liverpool, Keita, Matip, Salah, Mane and Konate, I think, may be on African Cup of Nations duty in January, if I'm not mistaken. So that could be a big...
Have a massive impact, couldn't it then?
Yeah.
Well,
yes, sir.
Just very quickly, just going back to what you said before about Solskjaer, I think, about in-game management. I was doing a commentary for the BBC and I mentioned that there was a change in the game now. I'm going to give this to Klopp, but I don't know if it was Klopp or if it was the lads themselves, but it just shows you. I just mentioned that Jota and Mane had swapped positions. So Jota went to the left wing and Mane went to centre forward. Now, if that was Jurgen Klopp, Mane scored 50 seconds later. So if that was the manager's decision and it just didn't happen in the flow of the game, then it's just like a genius at work, because he knew there was a flow, he knew there was something coming, but it wasn't happening for Jota. If he put Mane through the middle for him to score within the same minute, it's incredible, and it separates the genius from the average. And I saw it with my own eyes, because that's exactly what happened.
Fantastic. Well, look, we've got a few more games before we wrap up, but we'll go it quick fire. I know Scott might have to have an early night. He's probably got training in the morning and all that. But let's talk about your old boys then. Leeds drew 2-2 against Everton, mate. I don't know if that was a better result for Everton or Leeds. I know Everton had a good start to the season, obviously beating Southampton, but to go to Ellen Road to get 2 goals is impressive. But Leeds fought back. But where do you think the problem lies for Leeds? Because, you know, Steve and I have been talking about Bielsa and his system and how he's very attack-minded, and it's almost as if he won't change for anyone. That's how he's going to play, and that's it. What does he need to do to shore things up defensively? Because they're leaking goals left, right, and centre, and they're cheap goals as well.
I don't think he cares. I think exactly what you've just said. I think he's got that way of playing. He's probably played that way from when he first started out as a manager, it's brought him success everywhere he's been. And listen, I've got a few mates there who were still there from the time I was there, but he just strikes me as the type who is so bold. Going back to when we were talking about Ole Gunnar Solskjaer about being, has he got that ruthless edge? He just strikes me as that type who he doesn't care what any pundit, paper, fan, anybody says. This is how my teams play, and I ain't changing for anybody. Because you look at, you go into Old Trafford on the opening day of the season, the biggest pitch probably in the league, and playing how he plays, man to man, pressing. He's obviously just doesn't faze him, doesn't bother him. So I think ultimately the way they play, they will score goals and they'll concede goals, and I just think it'd be great for any neutrals going to Ellen Road this season. But it's just, that's how it is, and I think he's the type of coach that he might tweak one or two things, and I'm sure him and his staff will be looking at how he can concede less goals. But he probably won't want to come away from his beliefs and his philosophies too much, because then it might alter things going forward. But yeah, he just strikes me as that type of, this is how I'm playing, this is how I want my teams to play, this is how we train, this is how we do it, and it's brought me success. I remember his Athletic Bilbao teams going to Old Trafford, and they dominated Man United. To be honest, they had Munain and the Herrera. They had a really good side, and
Llorente was up front, wasn't he?
Yeah, Llorente. Yeah,
Munain was in that team.
Yeah. So he might be thinking, why would I change? Leeds aren't going to go and get in the top 6 realistically. So why not just go for it every game and see what could happen?
So you being a former Leeds player, what does this Premier League campaign mean to their fans? Obviously they came up, but there was no fans in the stadium. But this year they're all back. The atmosphere at Ellen Road, you know what it's like. Can you describe it?
It'll be absolutely huge for them. Absolutely huge. They such a big club, one club city. They've been waiting for this moment from the first season they dropped out the Premier League. They almost felt like, due to the size of the club and the history of the club, it just was almost like it should have been a given that the club that big. Listen, they had huge problems off the pitch with owners and stuff. That's all been well documented. So the fans, I'm sure the atmosphere was amazing there on Saturday, and they've been waiting for that moment for 16 years. I think they were close actually the first year they got relegated in the Championship. A little bit of investment went on the stadium instead of the squad. I remember people saying during my time there, I could have jumped them straight up. They even went down to League One. Don't forget, Leeds. A club that size. They've had a lot of turmoil off the pitch, and they've had some tough times. So yeah, their fans will be looking forward to every game, probably more than any other fan base in the Premier League, to be brutally honest, because of what they've been through in recent years, and last year the frustration of the no crowds. So it'll be a hostile place for teams to go there this year for sure.
100%. Steve, City, you guys won 5-0 against Norwich. Jack Grealish scoring his first goal for the club, even though I don't think you knew too much about it. I don't know what to ask you with this one, because I think we all knew that Norwich were going to get a hiding. I think we knew that City were going to be ruthless given the first day of the season against Spurs. Another day at the office, I guess.
Yeah, it feels like it's still. Unfortunately, it seems like we have to put in a shocking, really dismal performance every season at Tottenham and get beat for us to kick in, because that happened last season and it's happened again this. The manager keeps foxing us a little bit with selection this time to his benefit, the team's benefit, by playing Gabriel Jesus on the right wing as a flyer, as opposed to a dribbler like Mahrez or Bernardo Silva or Phil Foden. It was get the job done quickly, which was superb to see. So that puts the tally of about 7 or 8 players that can play right wing for us now. And then obviously Torres comes in and I don't like the word, but false number 9, but number 9 at the right time. To put the question mark again, are we actually going to get a centre forward or not? But as you quite rightly say, we clicked back into gear. Good business day at the office. The back line was a lot higher. The extra fullback was into midfield to outnumber. And of course, he could have scored 10 against Norwich. So a good way to basically reset the season, but it'll count more next weekend when we've got hopefully not against Arsenal, but hopefully now we can go on a bit of a run and get those points back that we lost first game.
Right. I want to quickly talk about Aston Villa against Newcastle United. Now, Danny Ings scored probably the greatest goal he ever scored in his football career, but it was overshadowed by comments made by Dean Smith of Full Time congratulating, was it Austin McPhee, I think his name is? Is that who he is? Austin McPhee, who's the throwing coach. He played for, I don't know who he played for. He played for Cowdenbeath, wasn't it? Or he coached Cowdenbeath? I don't know. But he's come in as a throwing coach. And yes, that was the main reason why Danny Ings scored a fantastic goal, because the throwing coach taught Matty Cash, or whatever his name is, to throw the ball 15 yards at Tyrone Mings. Scott, you're not in our WhatsApp group. I don't know whether it's a good thing or a bad thing, given the stuff that Rodri sends. But we were discussing this conversation that Gary Lineker had with Danny Murphy on. Actually, I didn't see it, but Steve kind of was giving me a rough idea as to what happened. They were disagreeing about whether it was something new or something. I mean, we've seen over the years people like Rory Delap launch the ball in the box with a throw in. It's not anything new. So what's this fascination with throwing coaches all of a sudden? I don't get it. Because I'm not involved. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't really know, to be honest. I've not been at a club where they've had a specific throwing coach. You know, the day before every game. Certainly the last 2 or 3 clubs I've been at, and it's heading that way now. The coach or the assistant manager or the manager goes through attacking, defensive, set pieces, corners, free kicks, throw-ins. You know, I guess a throwing coach must just sit at a desk with a laptop and just look through hundreds, thousands of corners, throw-ins, free kicks from all games in all levels, all over the world, and come to some sort of statistical conclusion of a certain way of. It's the only thing I can think of really to get this sort of title. I know Liverpool had one, didn't they? I think a few years, they were one of the first clubs. I personally don't really get it, because from my experience as a player, I'm sure Steve will know as well, you might have 3 corners that you do. One hand, 2 hands, bounce ball, you go here, this player will run this position, we're trying to exploit the back post, the near post, we're going to do a cut back, we're going to try something clever. You know, there's not, for someone to have a position in a football club as a set piece coach. I mean, I'd love to actually find out what they actually do, what the job entails, but I don't get it really. You know, like I say, all coaches go through attack and defensive, throw-ins, your position, where they anticipate the opposition's going to go, and where they watch videos from previous games of the opposition. And yeah, that's all I really see it as, really, to be brutally honest. I don't get it.
Steve, you sent me an article, was it today or yesterday, about AFC Wimbledon trialing a substitutions coach.
Yeah, it's embarrassing.
Yeah, apparently this guy got the job because he did some research on substitutions.
It's embarrassing still. It's embarrassing. Just very quickly going, but it's an insult to our intelligence. I'm all for these small margins to help you win. And if a throwing coach, is quite rightly, as I said to you, Scott said the same, is studying how people defend the 18-yard box, sat on a computer all day, then all of a sudden you're seeing a move where a couple of your players run underneath the ball and take some defenders away. Then one of your players runs into one of theirs and blocks them. And all of a sudden Danny Ings gets himself free in the box. You're going, well done. Well done. That was done in the classroom, then done on the training pitch, and it's helped you win a game. Well done. But when you're throwing it 18 yards onto your centre half's head, who tries and tries and tries again and eventually flicks it into the middle of the box, and the third best striker in the Premier League gets a volley off, and probably it's a great finish. Are we talking like the Emperor's New Clothes here or something? You know, what primary school team did never do this, where you used to throw the ball to the biggest player as near as you can to the goal and hope something would happen? And Dean Smith saying, oh, a lot of kudos will go to my set piece man for this. it was thrown onto Tyrone Mings at 6'4", who jumped to 6'7", who headed it to a great striker. There was nothing new about it. There was nothing good about it other than the fact that the finish was amazing. So then you see this AFC Wimbledon trialing a substitutes coach. It gets my goat a little bit still, because I'm recognising now that people are trying to be creative, innovative, and just do new things, even if it is new at all. It's possibly not even new. A lot of it's bullshit, but people are trying to modernise and do something flashy for the first time. And like I said, the most annoying thing is the ones who are doing it and pretending it's for the first time, but it's been going on 100 years. That's what I saw with the Villa throw.
Scott, apart from that, it was a good win for Aston Villa. Mentioned Danny Ings' goal. They obviously scored from the penalty spot. I don't think they miss Jack Grealish at the moment because Buendia had a very good game. But in terms of their league position, don't forget this is a club that, had it not been for goal line technology not working at Villa Park, they'd have gone down, wouldn't they? So are they making progress under Dean Smith, and especially now that John Terry's gone as well?
Yeah, no, I think he's done a great job, to be fair, getting them promoted. It's not easy to get out the Championship. Steve worked there. It's a tough league, so to get promoted, even if you're a huge club like Villa, still a tough task. And then obviously a bit of luck, like you say, with the goal line stuff last year. But yeah, I think they triggered a clause, didn't they, Man City, to take Grealish, and I think they've used that money well so far. I think Buendia is a top player. Obviously, they got off to a disappointing start last week away at Watford. But I think Ashley Young's a good bit of business for him. I think he's got great experience. Just won the Serie A over in Italy. Played hundreds of games for Man United. I think that would be a good signing for him. And yeah, I think they'll have a good year. I think seems a really good coach. And I think he's done a good job there. And I think they'll keep progressing.
Lovely. And Steve Nuno went back to Wolverhampton, got the 3 points for Spurs. Although I guess they have their new goalkeeper to thank, the Wolves, for losing that game, because he had a bit of a nightmare conceding that penalty. But then again, he did make 4 or 5 good saves later on in the game. Spurs looked dangerous on the counter-attack, though, as they did last week.
Yeah, they did. Probably a different style of play, although they were big on the counter-attack last year, but that was by dropping Son and Kane into defensive areas and breaking from there. But, we already discussed it so many times. You couldn't keep that up for the whole season without blowing up. I think the key to this is Dele Alli. Careful what I say here, because it's been a while, but it's certainly showing the MK Dons form by playing deeper. And I've seen it with a lot of young players still with talent, and it's the coach's fault. But Dele Alli's took a lot of criticism for his form. Should we even say it's up to about 2 years now? Might even be more.
It was the back end of Pochettino's reign, because he was benching him quite a lot. And then Mourinho came in and he gave him that whole, are you Dele Alli's brother? And he started all right under Jose, but then afterwards downhill. So, yeah, I mean, how has that been? It's probably been about 2 years.
We'll say 2 years. Well, yeah. I think, obviously, it's a great podcast that you run. It's open to debate. I think I've got this one sussed, because I've seen it with so many good young players. When you are an attacking midfield player and you end up in the number 10 position, eventually you start getting picked as a number 10. Once you get picked as a number 10, you are immediately man-marked, you are immediately facing the wrong way, and you are immediately limited to how many touches you can have on the ball in that position at number 10. And the easiest thing to do is, and it's not a negative move, is move that player back to number 8 and just keep encouraging him to run to number 10. And if he gets free, he's also facing the right way. So there's always an over-enthusiasm to always a number 10 playing there, but you just get blocked out of the game. So it looks like Dele Alli now is playing deeper, and he can time his runs. He made the run in between the centre-halves for the penalty. And when he runs forward now elusively, he is at least facing the goal and not the wrong way. And I feel like I've watched him for England having to play one touch, because he's been marked by a defensive midfield player facing his own goalkeeper and not theirs. So hopefully we'll see the best of him now. Don't know what you think about that.
I think he's a fantastic footballer, mate. I really do. And I think he's had his distractions off the field. we don't know what's happening in his personal life as well. And a lot of footballers go through this. And Scott, I'm sure you got stories, Steve, you got stories of players who haven't fulfilled their potential because of personal issues. I mean, we saw Mason Greenwood last season go through a really bad patch, and then we found out his mate committed suicide. And you're thinking, well, that's obviously got to play a part in his football career. It's very difficult to flick that switch and be professional all the time. So I think something similar happened to Dele Alli. Maybe he had distractions off the field. Maybe he had personal problems. I don't know. But Scott, this lad is full of talent, isn't he? I mean, was it the Euros? Was it Euro 2016 it was at for England?
It's good, isn't it?
2016, wasn't it? So it wasn't long ago. He's a good player. He's what, 25, 26 now? Is he older than that?
No, I think it's about right, yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think he's much older than that if he is. I completely agree. I think he's got so many good assets to his game. And funnily enough, actually, what Steve was saying there is spot on. He doesn't strike me as the type, I don't think he is the type of player who's that silky number 10 who gets the ball between the lines, got really good skills. He's more of a powerful runner from deep, making the box, supporting the striker. I personally see that's where the strength lies. And I signed for MK Dons not long after he left, and that's what all the people said there. He played as a sitting two in midfield. And they said when he had space to run with or without the ball, he could just drive, open his legs. And that was where he sort of got the, wow, what a player. He wasn't, like Steve said, a number 10 who was getting in between the lines, trying to pick up clever pockets, get on the half turn. It just wasn't not what he did. And going back to the dip in form, yeah, listen, there's so many things that could happen to players. It could be how he gets treated from the manager's training. There's so many things. Under his best spells at Pochettino, he could have been really happy off the pitch. His life could have been great. The training could have suited him perfectly. Physically, he felt really good. Pochettino looked like he put an arm around him and made him feel loved. That could go a long way. Certain players need different things to hit their top level. And it only takes one or two of them things to drop off or to change. And all of a sudden, he's questioning this, things like that. I mean, it often happens to very few players go through 10 to 15 years of the career at the top. So it's only really Ronaldo and Messi who haven't had a dip in form, who I can think of, and maybe Kane as well. So, there's hundreds of reasons. Like, it could be maybe family issues, off the pitch stuff. There's loads and loads of, might be playing with certain players. Certain players just work in a certain system, in a certain team, playing a certain way, and it just brings the best out of him. He's had a few managers there now who might have tweaked things for him. There's so many different reasons for why it just might not work. Obviously, as a player, I think you always look at yourself first. Can I do anything? Is there anything more I can do? Am I getting the best out of myself? And a lot of the time, players, I've never played with any players really, many who don't really give their all or aren't trying or anything like that. I don't think that's ever really the question. Because I think he got his hunger questioned a few times, didn't he, a couple of years back. That might not be the case. It could be any of the things I've just mentioned, but there's so many things that can affect whether the player is playing at the top level or not. Mental issues, confidence. There's so much stuff.
100%. I mean, if you look at someone like, I don't know, Patrick Bamford, I think he's a good example of a player that has played for Norwich. He was he at Forest with you?
No, so I signed for Forest on loan in January, and he just signed for Chelsea for £1 million.
Right.
I think he played 2 or 3 games for Notts Forest in the cup, and then he moved to Chelsea. But look, he's now made his sort of. I think he had a good loan spell at Middlesbrough, and then he went to a few clubs. Didn't really happen for him, and now all of a sudden he finds himself at Leeds, and it just works. And you see that happen. Some clubs just don't fit certain people, or like I say, the tactical style of how the team plays, the way the manager treats them. There's so much stuff that goes on that can affect the player and how they perform.
Absolutely. Well, I think there's only one more game to cover, Steve, and you're going to love this one, with Brighton beating Watford 2-0. The reason why I love this, because last week we spoke about XG, didn't we? How there was a story going around where if Brighton had converted their XG, they would have been 27 points better off for something stupid. Well, They scored twice. They got a good win against Watford. I know the Watford's manager was saying that we need to start getting used to the Premier League, which is understandable because they just got promoted. But the defensive mistakes there, I don't know, you'd be pulling your hair out, no?
Yeah, I think so. I think the confidence of the week before, I get the feeling that Watford went into that game again, a bit like a Leeds mentality. Probably we'll try and win again, but they probably learned that you've got to make sure that you don't lose first. A little bit wide open, a little bit on a stretch at the back. I think there will be a version of Leeds this year, Watford. No way will they finish as high, so I don't want to be misquoted there. But like a hit miss or maybe, I think at times they could be erratically superb, especially if Sarr gets the run of any left back like he did against Target of Aston Villa. But you also get the feeling that that's exposed him now, and they're more aware of him now, and that there'll be a left back across the country, not as unaware as Target was that day, that'll lock that side down, I think, and he won't get as much joy possibly again. I do think that. And I just think that Watford at times will excite, but often they'll disappoint because I don't think they've got the players, but they look like they're going to have a right go and be wide open. And Brighton are establishing themselves now as an evolving Premier League team that's on the way up and will finish higher than last season, I think.
Do you know what, mate? I'm very disappointed with how the newspapers and the press don't give Duffy, Dunk and Sanchez the credit they deserve, because I know it's all you could talk about Trossard and Maupay and McAllister and Bissouma, whatever, but those three players, like Duffy and Dunk, they have been absolutely solid. You know, with Ben White going, they've been absolutely solid. And again, I don't think they get the credit they deserve. What do you guys think?
Well, I certainly think, just before I hand it over to Scott, that you've just mentioned three players there, and Duffy spent all last year away from the club. Sanchez played for a full season at Rochdale in League One, and Dunk has been growing now as a real, almost like a Harry Maguire type. Plays the minutes, plays the games, can get you a goal from a set play. So yeah, and you know that experience, you know, sometimes not even the best experience can end up being good experience for you. Playing in League One if you're the goalie, not being able to get in the team last year, but you can turn it back round if you know, again, with the right coaching, the right encouragement, a little bit of luck. And it is only 2 games, but you have to say the 3 you mentioned are completely on top of their game.
What do you reckon, Scott?
Yeah, definitely. I think Dunk's an interesting one. Speaking about Ward-Prowse earlier, being a one-club man, I think he can make the next step. I think he could play for maybe not a top 6 club, but I think he could go to, you know, like an Everton, a Leicester. You know, I think he could play at that level, definitely. Shane Duffy, I played against Shane loads of times. He was the same age as me in the youth team. Like you say, he's obviously showed good character to come back. He obviously must have come back in pre-season, good shape, with a fresh focus and fresh, you know, good attitude to, like you say, he went on loan last year, so obviously he wasn't hugely fancy with the form of Ben White. And the goalkeeper, again, like you say, spent a whole year at League One level. That game experience, that playing for points, being in a men's dressing room would have brought him on leaps and bounds. And again, he's obviously gone back in pre-season, impressed the staff, impressed the manager, and being given a chance, and you know, so far he's done well.
Third choice for the Spanish national team as well. Not bad.
Yeah.
not third choice keeper. Here you go. Brilliant. Well, gents, that's it for this episode. Thank you, Scott, for jumping on, man. I really appreciate it. I hope you can jump on again sometime soon.
Yeah, no, it's been really enjoyed it. So thanks for having me, fellas.
Appreciate it, man.
Scott.
Thank you very much. Steve, thank you very much.
Yeah, let's chase the boy up.
That's we need to give him some stick. I think, do you know what? I think because he embarrassed himself last week with that wet fart, he didn't want to come back on. Okay. So, you know, maybe that's what it was. But yeah, that's it. Thank you everyone for tuning in. That's it for another episode. We'll be back same time next week. Until next time, take care of yourselves.